Heya Cryptozens. Tonight's show, the obligatory Crypto is Freedom episode. It's 10 p.m. Pacific time. The date is July 4th, 2022. Welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nicodemus, and I'll be your host. The cover model, mascot, and co-host for this podcast is Tex. And together we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space and the industry that surrounds it. So take a minute, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast now, because we're here at 10 p.m. every night so that when you leave in the morning, you're taking with you the crypto news analysis that you need to start your day. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. In the United States, we're celebrating the birth of our nation, a nation founded on the principles of freedom. And absolutely, mistakes have been made. Mistakes are still being made today. But the principles of freedom remain. And I'm a U.S. Marine, and while I am critical of my country often, I still love my country and the freedoms that we have today. And freedom was on the table from the very beginning, because it was in 1776 that my country rebelled against its rightful ruler. Well, ruler anyway. And while time has absolutely healed those wounds, at the time, colonies were really mad at the crown. And every school child knows the reason. Taxation without representation. And to be sure, it was more complicated than that, but the fact remains that George Washington and his compatriots went to war with the King of England over property rights. That was a large part of it. There were certainly other grievances at work. Some of those were local based, some were situations that would have eventually worked themselves out. But the biggest complaints, the biggest grievances, had to do with property rights. The right for the government not to put military on your own property. That was a thing back then. People were forced to host British troops. It was called the Quartering Act. If the local government couldn't provide enough barracks for all the troops in your area, the inns and the alehouses, basically anywhere you could rent a room, you had to accommodate the British troops. That included food, drink, lodging. From the British side, they thought it was logical. Those troops are there to protect you from the Native Americans and the French. Of course you should take care of their needs. They're here to protect you. The Third Amendment is here to protect you from that. Because the Founding Fathers knew then what we know now. Property rights are the basics of freedom. If you don't have any property rights, then you don't have any freedom. And financial rights are property rights. The right to make money, the right to hold on to that money and invest it, the right to use it when you wish. On the other hand, if you don't have any money, your options are fewer. The more money you have, the more options you have. And options represent freedom. Take a look at Afghanistan. For years, women have been building up a store of value in Bitcoin. They were buying their financial independence in a country where the property rights of women are virtually non-existent. Women can't work, and they can't hold or handle money. Cryptocurrency gives them that freedom, the freedom to own and transact. That freedom comes from an absence of interference from a central authority. You have the freedom to act, to build. We're spoiled in the United States because banking is so easy for us. It's gotten even easier since the invention of digital cash settlement options. But even before that, we had checks, and while they were slow, they worked, and they were more secure than carrying cash. Carrying around pockets full of fiat is really the only reality available to some people. Much of the world goes around unbanked. They get their fiat currency, if they get any, and then they hold on to it in that form. A traditional bank where you could deposit and store your cash might be hours or days away, which means it is quite the trek every time you want to go deposit money in the bank or get money back out. So a lot of people don't do that. They just hold on to their fiat currency, which makes it difficult to save. Most of the unbanked, they just don't save. They spend their money pretty quickly, and for one thing, it's safer that way. It's much harder to steal a couch than a wad of fiat currency. Well, it looks like the crypto market is throwing a little independence rally. At the time of writing, the global crypto market cap is $913.38 billion. It's up 4.39% in 24. The top 5 cryptos by market cap are Bitcoin up 4.98%, Ethereum up 7.36%, Tether USDC and Binance Coin up 5.76%. And then you have the people who get kicked out of the traditional finance system. Happens more than you might realize, even here in the United States. In some cases, it might be because the government doesn't like you. Maybe you're a dissident fighting your government for human rights. Maybe you're trying to hold your government accountable and they punish you by cutting you out of the system. There are places where that still happens. And the banks, too, they get involved. And they're even more difficult to deal with in some ways because they get to choose who can and cannot be their customer, where the government has to pretty much take anyone. Here's an example. I live in the state of Oregon, and in Oregon, legalized recreational marijuana a few years ago. That means it's legal to use, it's legal to own, it's legal to grow, it's even legal to sell. They have a license for it. Same agency that handles liquor licenses handles the pot shop licenses too. Now, the federal government, of course, they still say it's illegal. That said, under Republican and Democrat administrations both, no real action has happened. The DEA isn't kicking in the doors to the marijuana dispensaries. But they don't have financial freedom. The banks have kicked them out of the financial system. Here's what's going on. If you were to go to a pot dispensary in the state of Oregon, you better carry cash or a debit card that you can use to get cash. Stop by the ATM on the way because they can't take credit cards, which I can understand not wanting people to use credit cards to finance their high, but people use credit cards to buy booze all the time, so that's not really a strong argument. It's a cash-only business, and that is because the credit card companies have chosen not to allow marijuana dispensaries to process credit card payments through their system. The claim is that they're worried about the feds. Because federally it's illegal, they're worried about potential repercussions for allowing pot shops to bank within their system. And let's be clear, that is absolutely their right. That said, it makes things much more costly and difficult to do business. And it's a safety issue, to be honest, because everybody knows these places are cash only. That makes them very vulnerable to scumbags. Now, another example. I've seen people posting the receipts on crypto Twitter. Banks closing the accounts of people because they trade in crypto. And another example that we talked about extensively on this show was the Canadian truckers, the Freedom Convoy. As a part of the larger story, financial freedom and government control over finances were absolutely highlighted as something for everyone to pay attention to. The government told the banks to freeze the accounts. The accounts got frozen. This cut them from financial support of people who believed in what they were doing. A couple of attempts were made at crowdfunding. GoFundMe didn't want any part of it. Other crowdfunding platform tried to step in, Give, Send, Go, but that didn't work out either. Because a Canadian court order blocked the distribution of funds and threatened to seize the cash. So people sent crypto. Two mixed results. People who got their crypto and then took it off of the exchanges and put it into cold storage or somewhere else were fine. If you left it on the exchange, you were still vulnerable to government seizure and interference. Get your money off the exchanges if you want to be free. On the other hand, if you've got a cell phone, that's all you need. You can send and receive money without permission or interference. You can store your money without fear of seizure. They might legally force you to do something, but they can't just take it. Now compare that to Venezuela. Venezuela is notorious for taking cuts. Yeah. Every remittance sent to Venezuelan citizens, the government takes a cut. And you can't get around it, not without using crypto, because the banks are in on it too. The citizens are required to use national banks for foreign transactions. Then the banks collect information on the recipients to forward on to the Venezuelan regime. Under this system, the fees are as high as 56%, and it takes weeks for money to clear. Global NFT sales volume is down 2.5% in 24 hours. According to CoinMarketCap, the top 5 NFT collections by sales volume are Moonbirds, followed by Bored Apes, Otherdeed, Clonex, and Mutant Apes. Now keep in mind, some of these collections have very volatile prices, so do your own research. Look at China. Look at what they're doing to their economy. They were threatening a crackdown on crypto for years. So when China came out in 2021 and banned crypto again, It really didn't register at first, but it wasn't too long before people began to realize that really this time it was different. This time Beijing was serious. This time cryptocurrency was banned. Not NFTs. No, they're still okay, as long as there's none of that nasty old crypto involved. And the metaverse is still a go, again, as long as there's no crypto involved. So I wondered for a while why it was different this time. Why were they actually going through with banning crypto? And for a time, I thought it made sense. It was late September 2021. Bitcoin had hit a new top at around 53,000 at the beginning of the month, and the market was generally trending downward. So my thought was that they were going to try to trap value, trap the Bitcoin value, because if you make the citizens turn crypto into fiat and then ban any new crypto, that slows the rate of value leaving the system. So I thought they were being really clever and trapping some value in the form of Bitcoin behind an iron wall in the form of a crypto ban. And I have come to understand that while maybe that's part of it, it certainly wasn't the biggest part. I think what really changed things was the success of their CBDC. I think the reason why they got around to banning Bitcoin and banning crypto was because they got some good success out of their central bank digital currency. Something I am convinced will go down in history as a tool of the tyrant. Not every bank, not every country, sure, but fascists will seize on the power given them by CBDCs. And China is pressing forward with their plans for their own CBDC. And they certainly didn't want a real cryptocurrency in there competing with their coin. Because while Bitcoin and CBDCs might look alike to some people, they are so very far apart. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer cash payment system. CBDC is governmental control over your finances on steroids. When China fully enacts CBDCs as the only official way to transact in China, that changes the game as far as their insight and control over their citizens' finances. China will be able to tell exactly how much money each of their citizens has and where they spent it. What are their spending trends? Further, they'll have control over how that money gets used. And they can just block transactions from going through. Yeah, if you were going to make maybe a donation to a political party they didn't like, they could just stop it. If they do this, if they enact a CBDC in the United States, think about what that means. Everyone's financial information will be centralized. All your information about all your financial holdings will be in a government database somewhere. And that database will not be in your control. Your information would not be in your custody. And the U.S. government doesn't have a great track record when it comes to protecting people's personal information. No, all of that will be controlled and stored by the U.S. government. And rather than being secure and anti-inflationary like Bitcoin, the government will still be free to make as much money as they want. In fact, it'll be even easier because then the government is both money printer as well as bank. That's one of those dangerous seduction parts about CBDCs because they look like crypto, even though they do the exact opposite. Bitcoin is all about peer-to-peer and permissionless. CBDC is all about top-down and control. And I know there's another theory on how to enact a CBDC without the central bank or the government being directly involved. Private banks would be servicing the customer's needs while keeping the liability with the central bank. That's really no better. So using CBDCs as a substitute for crypto in servicing the unbanked is really no solution. The only free choice is crypto. I'm going to go back to my family now. We're barbecuing and celebrating the freedoms that we enjoy. I hope you're able to do the same, no matter what country you're in. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I'll stop talking. You stay safe out there. Watch out for yourselves, but watch out for each other too. Until next time, let freedom ring.